Okay.
We're gonna do the clapboard. We can have a.
So when we first came, we can talk a little bit about village.
All right, here we go.
All right. So my first experience of the village was kind of pre-village. And
All
by
right,
that,
so I
heard about the
came
village.
towards the
Village had
end
formally
of
formed
Because of
a
my
church
son
at-
Jeremy
Six.
and Karen.
because I was
So it
dating.
was 2000. All right. So my first experience of the village was kind of pre-village. And by that, I mean that the village hadn't formally formed as a church yet. So it was 2000, and I was I guess I was in a process of looking for a new church. And Emily and Jeff McConnell were involved in a community of people that turned into the village, and they encouraged me to come to a party that was being hosted at Eric and Sue and Keith and Julie's house, and there's this other couple living there. It was a party for Russ and Emily's engagement. And so I went to that party, and I felt really comfortable hanging out with the people there. I remember talking with Julie for a little bit. There were just things about the house and the space that felt really comfortable for me. I grew up in Christian culture, but I was kind of tired of dealing with Christian bubble people for a variety of reasons. So. So I had a good experience at the party, and months later, when I was struggling with sadness and depression over my grandmother being sick, I came to a church service. Well, it was someone else's space. We were renting space with a Messianic Jewish congregation. It was this like little back room. And there's like my memories of like 3 candles and black curtains, which strangely fit my mood at the time. But the main point that really stuck with me, there was a young man there who was struggling with severe mental illness. And during the end of the service, he went into a rant, like he was kind of psychotic and going into a rant. And 2 or 3 men jumped up and immediately just took care of him in a way that I found amazing. And it was the kind of community I wanted to continue to be part of, because my logic, and I'm still sticking with that, is if you can interact with someone who is really not well in that kind of an empathetic way, then that is the kind of church that I would feel safe in.
All right, so I came towards the end of 2006 because I was dating my wife, Karen, at the time. So I had been going to Calvary Chapel for probably about 6 months because I had recently left another church, New Testament Baptist Church. So I went from New Testament Baptist to Calvary Chapel, and then I was dating Karen, and she invited me to come to the village. My first impression of the village was that it was really, really strange. So I don't think I was ready at first to commit to coming to the village. I was still going to a Calvary Chapel service in the morning, and then I would come here to the village with Karen in the evening because I liked Karen. I think that was the main connection for me to keep coming here. But like walking into the building, it was at a Lutheran church in their fellowship hall, but the setup was trying to create the space so it wouldn't look like a fellowship hall. It would look like this, I don't know, theme that the village was going for, which I would describe as a dark art gallery, I guess.
So I heard about the village because of my son Jeremy and his wife Karen were members here, and were quite active, and they liked it. And my very first visit here was actually on a Christmas service, so we sang Christmas carols. I have to say that my very first impression was that it was similar to my wife's father's church. He was a church planter, had a very small church out in Littletown, right behind the Triple D truck stop. Had kind of an informal feel about it. There were no pews, there were just chairs. And I felt basically at home at that service, and I really enjoyed it.
Yes, I don't know. There was like these big wooden pallets with black sheets in the back that kind of pushed everybody to walk in front of those, so you'd all be kind of sitting in the same area. And then around it was like living room lamps, or maybe 3 candles on a stand, maybe some weird painting off to the side. And I just remember it being really dark sitting in there. Some other things that were different that I noticed right away was not something we do anymore, but there was this body prayer that we would do, where we would stand in a certain formation, and someone would explain what this like stance that we were in symbolized, and they would read scripture over us. And this was so bizarre to me with my Baptist background. Just coming to terms with Calvary Chapel was an okay place to be, and now I was here at the village.
We came at Christmas time a year ago, and I loved the song service and the music played by the guitar, and the candlelight service. That was such a blessing to my heart. Then we started coming after we got our shots for COVID. We started coming more. The village has just really blessed me with the services, the preaching, and it reminded me of my dad's little church in Littletown, where when we first moved here, we went there.
When we left the church we'd been part of for many years, this was one of the first places I wanted to come, but the governor closed virtually every meeting because of the COVID on the day after I resigned from my positions at the other church. So we started watching it on the internet, and it was it was a blessing. Although we did not know that Eric and Mark didn't know what they were doing. They've explained that to me later, that doing those first services was really foreign to them, and it just all seemed quite natural to me. I totally enjoyed it, and I loved the teaching.
I have been a part of the village since before we officially formed, and I remember, early times. I think the first building we were in was Bethel Church, and I really enjoyed. I was a single person in my 30s, and I felt very uncomfortable going to most churches. I love Jesus. I mean, I've loved Jesus my whole life, but in my 20s, it took a great act of will for me to go to most churches and church services, because as a single woman, I felt very conspicuous and alone, and that was not my experience at the village. So that helped me a lot as I was moving forward. And I remember I was coming to terms with kind of what my spiritual giftings were. And I remember an early conversation at Eric and Sue's house that I said, sometimes God tells me things and I don't know why I know those things. And they said, well, something to the effect of, you should tell us when you hear things from God, because we'll listen to you. And I actually believed that they meant it, which was really kind of crazy. We had some interesting times together in leadership with me exploring that gift. And I don't want to go into that because that's more someone else's story than mine to tell. But that was a really formative experience too for me in my 30s.
All right, I think my church experience had been, growing up I was at the same church with all the same people, and I think that that experience was just telling me this is the way that it should be. This is the King James Bible. This is what you need to read. And like I went to Christian school where we were taught that. So I was just really all the way from like kindergarten through high school. I was just I would say inundated with Bible and King James Version and all of these things, republicanism, all of it tied into like together, like Jesus, Republican, country, all of it was like all tied together into this thing. And I think the person that I was out of that, like I knew what to say because of what those people had told me, but my experience in once kind of leaving that culture was much more difficult on me. So some more background on what the village had done is like I think I was really I was at a place when I had left the New Testament, as I had recently been divorced and kind of felt like, well, that was it. I made an irreparable mistake in that first marriage. I shouldn't have married this person, and now I can't really be the Christian like I'm supposed to anymore. Like I can't do service. I can't. I'm like a second-class citizen in the church now because of my divorce, and I can't get married again. I had all these false beliefs about that because of I wasn't even interpreting the scripture right. It was just what people had said that made me think these things. So I was at like a really low point, kind of, and trying to figure out what I was going to do from church. I had left on my own because of some things I'd heard from God before that, and this what made me start going to Calvary Chapel. But then Karen bringing me to the village. There was a contrast there in Calvary Chapel because trying to find out where I fit or what was God doing next in my life, I really wasn't sure. And the Calvary Chapel experience had been go in, get churched, and get out. Like there wasn't really no one really talking to me. No one. I tried going to the like group that was designated for single people my age, and it was just the same thing. You just went in. There really was no community building. Nobody was trying to figure out what I was all about or how they could help me, or I didn't even know where I needed help really. And I think in coming to the village with Karen and getting connected with people and people asking me how you doing and just saying fine really was like not the answer they wanted. They wanted to hear more about what was going on with me. And I think that kind of just healed my whole church experience and kind of understanding what is it to be part of the church community.
Growth in my life spiritually has come about listening to the teaching and the preaching. We had the same pastor for 37 years at the church I came from, so I knew exactly what he thought things meant. I've not heard anything that I would think that he would disagree with, but I've certainly heard a lot of explanations of familiar verses and verses that are more obscure and passages that are more obscure that make things a lot clearer because they're from a different angle. So I feel I've grown in that I believe I have a more open mind towards the things of God and the things He wants me to do, which at this point in my life I actually don't know exactly what He wants me to do because I was real active in some things that aren't even in existence here at the village. So that's how I'm being healed, becoming more open-minded and growing.
And I like working with the children with Colleen, and I also enjoyed being in the nursery today with little Micah, and the village has just been a real blessing to me. The people are real friendly and nice, and I feel at home here.
And in terms of me becoming involved with music, I was hesitant to do it because of previous experiences I had at churches which were very focused on appearance, it looking nice and sounding nice and a certain kind of nice. And Sue and Eric were encouraging me to become part of music. And so I did the piano, I was comfortable with that. And then there's like this whole thing where Sue faked having a cold and she couldn't sing, and then I had to sing, and that was really, I still like to tell that story. I teased her about it. Sue tricked me to sing at church. Which is so not like Sue in a general way. I don't know, I'm really happy that Jeremy ended up coming to church with me. I was willing to leave the village when I met the man that I married, if that wasn't the place for him, but I was really happy that he felt comfortable staying here. And now his parents are here, which is kind of crazy.